Welcome to the PastGlimpse Photos channel.
Subscribe to the channel and like the video. This innocent-looking baby would one day become the architect of the deadliest war in human history. How did a boy born in a small Austrian town grow into a dictator who changed the world forever? This is the story of Adolf Hitler. This shot features Alois and Clara Hitler, the parents of the future dictator, whose family was a source of deep, unhealthy internal conflicts. Their personal history illustrates how complex family dynamics and early tragedies can shape a personality, ultimately leading to a global catastrophe. This is Adolf Hitler among his classmates, captured during his school years. It was during this period that his cruel and anti-Semitic views began to form. The photograph symbolizes an innocence that was corrupted and shows how early hatred can become rooted in a person's mind, ultimately leading to genocide.
This shows Hitler at the Belitz Hospital in 1916, recovering from a wound sustained at the front. World War I radically altered his views and cemented in him destructive ideas of greatness and betrayal. These war years were a fatal stage in the formation of a hater and a future executioner.
The 1916 image shows Adolf Hitler, right, with comrades on the front lines of World War I. He served as a dispatch runner, which gave him a false sense of heroism and cemented the stab-in-the-back myth he later used to manipulate the masses, justifying his future aggression and terror. This 1923 photograph captures Adolf Hitler, marked with an X, at the start of his political career. During this time, he actively spread nationalistic and anti-Semitic propaganda, laying the dangerous foundation for the future tyranny and terror that would consume all of Europe. This 1924 photo shows Hitler in Landsberg prison after the failed beer hall putsch. This period became a time of political consolidation for him and the writing of Mein Kampf, a book filled with racist hatred and destructive plans that would later lead to the Holocaust and a world war. This 1914 photograph from Odeonsplatz, where Hitler is allegedly captured in a cheering crowd, became a piece of Nazi propaganda. While independent historians question its authenticity, the image was used to create a false myth of his patriotism, justifying the regime's subsequent militarization and aggression. This staged photograph of Hitler in the 1920s, taken for propaganda purposes, shows his early attempts to craft the image of a national hero. The swastika, a symbol of the criminal regime, on his sleeve turns this image into a grim symbol of the destructive ideology that led to atrocities and millions of victims. These 1925 frames show Hitler rehearsing his theatrical gestures captured by Hoffman. They demonstrate a calculated attempt to craft the image of a messiah and a manipulator. These poses were intended to deceive the masses, leading them to subservience and participation in the regime's crimes. This 1936 New Year's banquet photo depicts Hitler demonstratively giving the Nazi salute. This gesture, which became a symbol of a misanthropic ideology, underscores his role as the leader of a criminal regime that had already begun preparations for aggressive war and genocide. In this group photograph, Hitler, standing right in a tuxedo, is surrounded by the elite of the Nazi regime and their wives. These individuals, representing the criminal leadership, enjoyed luxury while their ideology sowed death and terror across Europe, renouncing universal human values. This 1939 shot, taken at the Obersalzberg residence, depicts Hitler with his guests. This scene of false tranquility sharply contrasts with reality. At this very moment, the criminal regime was preparing to unleash a world war and commence mass murder. The tyrant poses as a gracious host, concealing his destructive nature. This color shot shows Hitler and his companion aboard the Robert Lay's ship, a symbol of the Nazi Strength Through Joy program. By portraying affluence and carefreeness, the regime attempted to distract the population from its despotic nature and preparations for a bloody war of aggression.
Hitler visits one of the officers just like him, who suffered from an unsuccessful assassination attempt on him on July 20, 1944. After the assassination attempt, Hitler was unable to stay on his feet all day as more than 100 fragments were extracted from his legs. In addition, his right arm was dislocated, the hair on the back of his head was singed, and his eardrums were damaged. Temporarily deaf in the right ear. He ordered the execution of the conspirators to be turned into humiliating torments, filmed and photographed. Subsequently, I personally watched this movie.
In this staged photograph, Hitler is seated with a child, attempting to project the image of a loving and benevolent leader. This false propaganda concealed his monstrous nature. He was personally responsible for the mass extermination of innocent children and the destruction of millions of families, becoming the ultimate executioner. This photograph shows Adolf Hitler with members of the Wagner family, descendants of composer Richard Wagner. Taken in Bayreuth, the site of the famous music festivals, the image illustrates how the Nazi leadership cultivated ties with Germany's cultural elite for propaganda purposes and to reinforce its ideology. This photograph shows Adolf Hitler surrounded by young stormtroopers in an informal setting. The scene illustrates how Nazi propaganda sought to portray the leader as close to the people, especially the youth. Such gatherings were used to strengthen the cult of personality and recruit new followers into an ideology of hate. Nazi propaganda actively promoted the image of Hitler as a caring leader. This photo, likely taken at Berghof, shows him interacting with children. It was a cynical attempt to conceal the regime's inhumanity, which in reality corrupted the youth with its extremist ideology. Hitler exiting a church is an example of propaganda aimed at appeasing the conservative population. The Nazi regime hypocritically used religious symbols while systematically persecuting clergy and seeking to undermine Christianity, replacing it with the cult of the Führer. This propaganda portrait shows Hitler with his German shepherd, Blondi. Such images were designed to create the impression of a caring and sensitive leader, masking the brutality and inhumanity of the Nazi ideology. This contrast between his personal image and mass atrocities remains one of the era's darkest paradoxes. Hitler and Eva Braun at a table with Joseph Goebbels. This informal shot reveals the private side of the Nazi elite. It highlights the hypocrisy. While the leaders enjoyed relative luxury, their regime was plunging Europe into war, committing unspeakable atrocities and genocide. Adolf Hitler delivers a speech at the Berger Bräukeller Beer Hall. This location became a symbol of Nazi demagoguery and a center for early party rallies. The site later saw an assassination attempt in '39, underscoring the internal resistance against the regime that had already launched a world war. Hitler in uniform, displaying a militaristic posture and symbolism. This aesthetic was an integral part of Nazism, designed to glorify the cult of force and aggression. Such images reflected the essence of a regime that made war and violence the key instruments of its criminal policy. A photo of Hitler with Princess Olga from Yugoslavia, who lived until 1997. Hitler was very attached to her and spent quite a lot of time with her during her visits to her husband, Paul. Speer recalled, Hitler was strangely tactile with Princess Olga. He always held her elbow or touched her wrists.
Hitler surrounded by a cheering crowd, showcasing his triumph and popularity. This cult of personality was a key tool in the Nazi seizure of power. Mass support, founded on demagoguery and nationalism, led Germany away from democracy and toward the start of unprecedented atrocities.
Hitler and Eva Braun during a walk. These staged photos served as a powerful propaganda tool, showcasing the dictator's human side. The goal was to conceal the murderous essence of Nazism, which was simultaneously unfolding its program of mass extermination and aggressive expansion.
Hitler in a tuxedo with a female companion. This photograph, showing the leader in a formal, social setting, was a propaganda element aimed at normalizing him. It sharply contrasts with the totalitarian regime he created, a regime responsible for planning and executing genocide and world conflict.
This 1937 photo shows famed German filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl smiling alongside Adolf Hitler and propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. Riefenstahl was renowned for her groundbreaking yet infamous propaganda films for the Nazi regime, including Triumph of the Will.
This surreal 1937 image shows Adolf Hitler attending a Nazi Christmas party. The regime notoriously attempted to replace the traditional religious elements of the holiday with pagan symbols and their own racist ideology. Here, the Führer is greeted by what they termed Yule, or German Santa figures.
A testament to growing militarism, a high-ranking Nazi official arrives at a railway station. He is greeted by a company of fully equipped soldiers, while swastika banners are prominently displayed. This was the regime's daily show of strength during the 1930s.
A rare photo capture, Adolf Hitler conversing with a high-ranking Catholic cleric. The image underscores the complex and often fraught relationship between the Nazi regime and Germany's Christian churches.
Inspects a Mercedes-Benz racing car. The image highlights his personal interest and the state's support the Nazi regime poured into the German automotive industry and Grand Prix motor racing.
A rare glimpse, Adolf Hitler in a relaxed setting with friends and close associates, including his longtime companion, Eva Braun. This photo captures the personal, non-public side of the Nazi leader within his inner circle.
Imperial Chancellery Garden, April 1945. Considered one of his final photos, Adolf Hitler here awards medals to young, battle-weary Hitler youth soldiers thrown into the desperate defense of a collapsing Berlin.
1945 Wanted posters. This official montage was created by U.S. intelligence. These alleged disguises show how Adolf Hitler might have looked if he escaped and changed his appearance, whether by shaving his mustache, growing a beard, or wearing glasses.
According to the official version, Hitler, along with his wife Eva Braun, committed suicide on April 30th, having previously killed his beloved dog Blondi. In Russian historiography, the view has been established that Hitler took poison, potassium cyanide, like most Nazis who committed suicide. However, according to eyewitnesses, he shot himself. There is also a version according to which Hitler, taking an ampule of poison in his mouth and biting it, simultaneously shot himself with a pistol, thus using both instruments of death.
There are a number of conspiracy theories claiming that Hitler did not commit suicide, but ran away. According to the most popular version, the Führer and Eva Braun, leaving doppelgangers in their place, disappeared to South America, where they lived safely under false names until old age. The photo allegedly shows 75-year-old Hitler on his deathbed.